Now, what we're going to be focusing on today is Autodesk Build from a PM standpoint. So what we're going to be focusing on is how this can help out from a financial standpoint, from project management to startup, scheduling, progress tracking, some communication and content access, and again, the Q&A at the end. Now, before we get rolling though, I always like to ask just a couple of questions to get an idea of who we're talking to. So if everybody can let me know, what's your role? Like, are you more on the design side, a CAD bid manager? Awesome, thank you very much. Then, are you already using any of the Autodesk Cloud solutions? So BIM 360, the unified platform, a little bit of both, or none? Okay, good. Good amount of you haven't used it yet, so this will hopefully be a very good first impression of it. And then lastly, are you using any different cloud tools? So it doesn't have to be Autodesk, could be anything. Awesome. Good to see the majority of you are using different tools, whether it's Autodesk or anybody else. As long as you're using them, that's great. All right, so let's get rolling. Now, what we're going to be talking about is the unified platform, just to get everybody on the same page here. Autodesk has a lot of different tools inside of the Construction Cloud. We're focusing on the unified platform, and the part of it that we're going to be focusing on is Autodesk Build. Now, the reason why we're focusing on the Autodesk Build one, as opposed to say Docs, Collaborate, Collaborate Pro, or Takeoff, is that number one, it includes all of the main components of the Docs platform. So all of our unified data for drawing, viewing, markups, issues, reviews, so all the main foundational tools that are inside of Docs. But then it also comes with a lot of the components that are in here. Now, this presentation is focused on project management, but we're not going to be solely looking at the project management component. So RFI, submittals, daily reports, those are really good, and there are things that we're going to be talking about. But there's a lot of other aspects on this that are beneficial from the standpoint of a PM that don't have to do with that specific module. So we're going to be looking at a lot of those things. So moving first, we're going to take a look at the financial management side. So right at the get-go of a project, it's important to understand how everything is going to affect the bottom line. And one of the first things that we're going to look at is if we're talking about a new tool, whether it's a software or a hammer, we need to know how we're actually going to be paying for it. And I mentioned we're talking about the unified platform. That's a little bit different with how BIM 360 used to work. So from a PM standpoint on BIM 360, if we were talking about Build or Docs, it didn't matter if somebody else already owned it. If I'm administering this project or owning the project, I'd have to pay for everyone else's licenses. That's actually not the case on the unified platform where everything's set up as a BYO. Now, if you want to be able to provide seats to other people, you definitely can do that. That's not taken away from you. But it doesn't mean that you're required to pay for seats for other people that aren't in your company. So if you want to require other people to use their license, so the way that a lot of tools are set up, people that used PlanGrid before, that's exactly how that was done. So you can actually make sure that when you're figuring out what the project costs for the tools or the software, you can say, okay, well, I'm requiring everyone on this project to provide their own licenses. So that way you no longer have to worry about it. Now, having said that, the price for this is here, and there are project or unlimited based pricing options. So for a lot of different services that people use, Procore, Aconex, some of the older tools from Autodesk, you could get that in an unlimited all-you-can-eat model. And this is also available in that. So if I just want to say, you know what, I'd rather be able to write the project cost or write the cost of this for the project specifically into one thing. So that way I'm not having to figure out, well, this project used a little of it and this other project used that. How do I, work this out? Perfect, project-based pricing. It costs X based on the project cost. Moving forward, it's unlimited. So there's different options here to make sure that the service is going to work for you and fit in within the project budget. And you understand before you get rolling what that actually even means. Now, in terms of purchasing this, there are also a couple of other options. So we're looking at this, and I mentioned we have project-based and account-based pricing, and that would be for collaborate, build, or takeoff. If you are looking at something else, these are relatively new, so I just want to make sure people are aware of it. There's new bundles that are coming out, and these are all based on an unlimited model. So whether you're looking at usings for pre-construction, so you get things like Takeoff and Bidboard Pro, the VDC bundle for Assemble and Tandem, and the Construction Operations bundle, which would be Build and Pipe. Now, other aspects from the financial thing is tracking your project costs. So the cost module inside of Build actually is part of Build. So people who might have heard about this before, a couple of years ago when it was first released, it was part of BIM 360, but it was an add-on to BIM 360 Build. With Autodesk Build, it's just a part of the service, so you already have it. You're not paying anything extra for this. And it allows you to track things like your project budget. You can make sure you're doing your payment applications through there. You can track costs and expenses. You can also do your change orders and track your forecasting. So if you wanted to track, okay, well, where are we using things? How much is the software costing? How much is my engineer? How much is the site work? You can put all that information in here and start tracking that through this. And like any tool, you can use it as much or as little as it works for you. So if you really like the change order management, perfect, we're going to do that. But if I don't want to do anything else, that's fine. The tool is there for you. But if I want to actually go through and start tracking my overall project forecast, I want to see how are things lining up with my project schedule. Are we using too much? Are we using too little? Are we right on track? This is one of those components that when we talk about reporting, I'll bring up again, but it's there. And if I do need to interact with or connect with outside sources, like say QuickBooks or other services, it is possible to sync with them. In some cases, we need to get like a third-party connector, but it is possible to do that. Now, next thing that comes up a lot when we start working with project managers is how to start my project. Meaning I need to get going. My project is live now. I don't want to wait a week for things to get rolling, or I don't want to have to recreate the wheel every single time I start this. So one of the things that we have in here is the ability to create templates. Now, the templates are great because you can make as many different kind of templates as you want. We have a lot of clients that have a lot of different kinds of projects. So depending on what they're working on, no problem. They can actually choose the right one and work from there. And when we're looking at our templates, there's also a function here called library. What the library does right now is allow me to set up specific templates for my forms or checklists. So if you're doing punch lists, if you're doing timesheets, all these kind of things, I can come through here, take a look at that, and then I can say, well, okay, well, now that I've got this, I want to push this out. So I want to say this template here for my checklist, I want to impart on 12 different projects. I want to add it to a project template. So any project creating with that automatically pulls it in. But this gives me that central location to manage my content. So that way, if there's a change, I'm not having to worry about people going into 12 projects and update something. I go back to the source. At the account level, I make the change there, and I can push that back out to all the different projects that are using it. So whether I'm making sure I have a project template that starts off exactly where I need, has things turned on, has my folder structure, has content added in there. And one of the other differences with the unified platform to BIM 360 is I can also say that anytime I create a project off of this template, I want you to add these people to the project automatically. So you can do more now with some of the functionality. Now, outside of our templates, we also have things like naming standards. So a lot of our clients are working on things, they have to meet certain standards. They're not the ones that set it, it's their client that actually does, the owner. So if there's certain naming conventions that you need to make sure that your team and the external teams are all following, I can actually set this up. So I can come up with the naming convention that I need, and I can also set it up so that way if there are files that are uploaded that don't meet that convention, they're still uploaded, but they're not published. So it gives the people the opportunity to correct the naming issues before they become available for everyone else. So if you're working on projects that might have ISO requirements, so whether it's managing your approval workflows, following naming conventions, having specific things set up for your permissions, all of those can actually be set up in here. And the permissions can be folder-based, and you can control exactly who has access to what from either the individual person or the role that you assign them to or the company that they work for. And again, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to drop those into the questions window. All right. Now, another one here is our project schedule. So a lot of the times when we're talking about schedule, you're typically going to have somebody on your project that's managing that. And there's usually a limited number of people that are accessing and are working on it, whether it's Primavera P6, whether it's Microsoft Project. You don't tend to have that available for everybody. So usually what ends up happening is people that are working on that schedule, they're going to be sharing that out as a PDF, or even in some cases that I've seen as images or JPEGs. So that way anybody can look at it on a mobile device. The great thing about this is I can take those kind of schedules, and then I can put that into my actual schedule tool inside of Build. Now, the benefit of this is not so much that, oh, we don't have to use Microsoft Project anymore. No, not at all. What this does is it allows me to have a viewer. So I'm able to make sure that the people that are working on my project schedule, they still use their tools. They still manage their part of the project. But once the project is up here, what it allows me to do is say who can actually view it, because again, I'm still controlling that. But now what I can also do is I can have people put in suggestions. So in this case, I'm looking at a project schedule. I can see my timetable here. I can see my list and my Gantt. And if I switch this from viewing to suggesting, what I can now do is go through here and say, okay, well, what do I need to do? Maybe the shore the existing stairway. I don't think I can do that. So let's see if I can push this out, another week. I'm having a problem there. There's other things that I have to go in here and put in comments or suggestions. I can do so. If I'm done, I say review and submit. And essentially what I'm doing is I'm submitting a suggestion or a request to the person who manages the schedule. So I can say, okay, what's the delay? What's the duration? How is this going to affect anything? I'd submit that to the schedule manager. And then the manager can look at these and actually say, okay, well, where are we with this? I'm reviewing it. Yeah, I'll allow that. I'll mitigate it. But again, I'm not making my changes here. What I'm actually going to do is do the changes back in the actual tool that we use. And then I can just update the schedule. So in addition to version controlling things like Word files, PDFs, Revit, AutoCAD, MicroStation, or pretty much anything that I upload, this will also allow me to update and version control my project schedule. So I can send this up here. I can rename it or share it as need be. And again, I have my permissions here that I can control. So only certain people can actually see it, access it, or edit it. So it allows me to make sure that I'm actually communicating my schedule appropriately with the rest of my team, but still taking advantage of the existing tools that we have. Now, kind of in line with the schedule is our progress. So one of the tools that's actually available now, granted, it's in open beta, so anybody can actually get access to this and start using it if you like, is the progress tracking tool. Now, what this allows me to do is essentially take views that are in my sheets and do markups on them. But those markups allow me to create specific types of statuses. So what am I tracking? What's my progress that I'm looking at? And then I can actually set the different statuses within that. And then from there, I can actually track that and see how the breakdown works. So for example, if I actually take a look at this, I'm over here. I've got my sheets and I've got my progress tracking up here. So I can actually hide or show my progress tracking. So right now I'm looking at this. I've got two different things for my ductwork. So I'm tracking installed or active. I can come through here and say, well, what am I working on? I'm working on my ductwork. Okay. So inside of ductwork, what am I going to draw? I want to actually, there we go, draw my lines. Now I can say that this right here is one of the things that I'm working on. So once I've actually got these in there, I can actually start to assign them to different things, whether it's by a window, whether it's clicking on it one at a time. This depends on what I'm actually looking at. So that one's installed. Maybe this one's already been inspected, so it's active, depending on how I want to track this. If I can anything where it's like, you know what, yeah, that's wrong. Let me edit that one, and then I can always delete this. But this allows me to essentially mark things up, and I can do that by drawing it. I can use it as a highlighter, make it easy to run it. And then from there, I actually have a progress tracking window that allows me to see, okay, well, what's the current status? How are we doing with things? So in my case, I have my ductwork. I've created one for footings, and I've created one for partitions. I can filter this, so I'm only looking at certain sheets if I have it on a lot of them. And if I've been setting this up on certain locations, So maybe only show me the ones that are on specific locations, like on the ground floor. So that allows me to track that. And then I can choose how I want to see this. But this is easy for me to set up and organize. You're really just configuring and saying, what are the object types that I care about? And what are the things inside of there that I want to look at? What are my statuses that I'm choosing between? So it gives you a lot of functionality and options. Now, while this isn't something that everybody will see here, all you need to do is go into the help file and it'll show you how to get access to this because it is technically in beta. But the great thing about it being in beta is they're looking for feedback. So it gives you a chance to help mold how it's going to be set up. Now, another big thing with this is our reporting. Now, when we say reporting, it could mean a lot of different things. And honestly, it usually does mean a lot of different things depending on who you're speaking to. But out of the box, there's a handful of different tools that are available here. So at the simplest, the reporting is your project dashboard. So this is a dashboard that's customizable. Everybody inside the project has the ability to update it, modify it. If you don't care about the weather or the address, you turn those off. If there's third-party tools that you want to see on here, I can turn those on. If there are custom dashboards that I want to create and share with everybody on the project, not a problem. You can actually set that up and organize that and then share that with the right people. From there, you'll typically have like, okay, well, I want to export this data. So I can easily export things out to Excel. So in this case, what I'm looking at is sort of a file standpoint. So where are we with things? What's in this folder? What's the name of the file? Is there a description? What version are we on? Has that been published? Are there any markups? Has it been shared? You know, who was the last person to update it? And if it's been reviewed, what was the result? So one of the many examples that we can do from an Excel standpoint. And then as expected, you can export out to PDF as well for different things. Great thing about this kind of report is that when I'm working on these, I can run through and say, okay, well, what do I need? So let me come through here, go down to my reports. Oh, actually, yep, I did already have that open there. Is once I've created this and organized it, I then come through and I can actually schedule that. So if I say that what I really want here is I want to get this report every Monday morning. So I've got a meeting at say 10. So I want to get my reports at 9. Tell it when to run, how often to run. And I can also share this with other people. Now, one of the first things I mentioned under the financial grouping was, okay, well, the licenses cost X, and this is what I have to do to get people in the project. But there are aspects of the service that you don't have to pay anything for. So in this case, if I want to actually share my reports, so I want to actually make sure that people that aren't in the project, maybe they're principals or the client, I can make sure that they receive these reports and they don't have to log in. They don't need a license for this. I have to put them in here under the share with others, and they'll receive that. So there are aspects of the service, like the ability to share individual files for download, my reports, interacting with RFIs via email. So there's different components here that will work without a license. Now, those are just some of the basic ones. One of the benefits of utilizing the build package over something like Docs, though, is that now you have something called the data connector. That data connector gives you access to basically all the data that's inside of your account. So if I'm trying to make sure that, okay, well, are these people that are working the project, are they logging in? Are they doing the work that they are supposed to be doing? Have they actually logged in? Do they have access to the right tools? So if I'm working on something, are people submitting the work that I expect of them? Have things been updated and changed when they're supposed to be? You know, if we're looking at things like my reviews, when was the last time these reviews are done? How many of these are actually past due? What's the due date on these? And these are just some samples that you can actually get from Autodesk for free for the data connector. So if you have people filling out forms, whether that form might even be for timesheets, again, another thing that's beneficial from a PM, I can have people using the mobile app out in the field, filling out their timesheet. I can be collecting all that data here and then organizing it and actually doing my work that way. But these templates are something that you can get from Autodesk. So it's a good starting point if you're not that familiar with Power BI. All right. Now, from a communication standpoint, one of the big things with the cloud services is that it's trying to help people have a central location for things. So rather than constantly sending emails back and forth that I include the right person on this, did that person add it, did it get forwarded, so now they're not going to know the next changes, it's making sure that you have a central place for all of the things going on in your project. Now, one of the big things here is going to be our reviews functionality. So when we look at a review here, what you can actually do is create custom reviews that have multiple tiers or sections. So if I have something that needs to go through 3 people, one at a time, I can set it up that way. If I have something that needs to have 3 people all review it as a group, you can also do that. And the nice thing is all of this actually does get recorded. So when I send this out, I can see who the person is that initiated it. I can control that, where we are with the initial review, and then the final review before it gets sent out. And I can make sure that the files that are being reviewed after the review is completed, they're marked as to whether they were approved or not. I can have them copied into specific folders to be shared with other people. I can manage all of that. Now, from a standpoint of if I don't need to review the file, but I just want to track my sending of the file, you have your transmittals component. So this allows you to send specific files to people. So that way they are in the project, but now you have a paper trail that these files were sent to this person at this date. And all this information here is something that I can take a look at within the data connector. So if I do want to have a report, again, where are we with our reviews? How are we doing with the transmittals? Were things sent out when we needed to? All that can be tracked and held accountable. And from there, we also have our meeting minutes. This is one of those functions that used to only be inside of BIM 360 Build. Now it's inside of all of the vertical products on the unified platform. But the nice thing about this is it makes sure that as you're going through the project, you can assign different responsibilities to people inside of here. So if I want to say, okay, this is what we talked about in our agenda. These are the people who are responsible for things. I can actually include people in here that are not a part of the project, so we can track that they did attend the meeting and that they actually have responsible sections from this. And I can easily take what we have from this meeting and copy it forward. Meaning that if once we're finished here, I say, well, we have our weekly meeting. Every Wednesday we go through and look at all of our clashes. Anything that's still open or ongoing will automatically get copied forward. So that way I don't have to worry about, okay, well, what did we miss? Did we cover everything from last week that was still open? We're not looking in 15 places for this. We're not checking emails for all of this. Again, we have our one location and it has everything that we need inside of there. And in terms of following up with this, if there's content that I need to share with anybody, I can come through here and I can share that content. And one of the things that not a lot of people I think are aware of is that you can actually share files with anybody with a link. So this has to be turned on as a project admin from a security standpoint, but I can share multiple files. I can even share a folder for download, not for upload. But that allows it to go out to anybody. Now, this other thing that a lot of people I don't think have seen yet is the another project function. So this is something that was in beta up until, let's see here, I want to say last month. And what this is basically the bridge functionality. So if I'm looking at my project here, and what I want to actually do is keep track of all the different things I've got open here. If I want to actually share something from one project to another. So maybe what's happening is you've got a large project that has multiple segments all happening together. And I don't want to have to worry about copy pasting things from one place to the other because, again, I don't want to fork my data. I don't want to try to figure out, okay, well, which one is the latest? Where is that? What I really want to do is to say, can I share this specific information here with that other project to make sure that if a thing changes here, it updates. So if I go here and say I want to share, I can, again, do anybody with the link. And these kind of things, I can also put an expiration on it. I can also say another project. So this allows me to set a target project and the folder inside of that project. What this does is literally bridges from one project to the next. And I can manage both things that are coming. So in this case, I have files coming from another project into mine. I can also manage content from here going out to that other project. And there's certain things here for automations. Now the automation would be if I have specific sheets. So anytime I have certain sheets in here, if those sheets update, I want them automatically copied to that other project. So if you have something where, you know what, from a security standpoint, I don't want to invite someone into this because they're going to see all of the sheets. I only want them to have access to these 15. So in that case, what I can do is create another project or have them have a project on their account, and I'll bridge the specific content that they need from my project to their project. So bypassing any concerns about adding them to my project. I'm just sending them the specific data, but I'm not worried about copying across because it's going to maintain the versions. I'm not worried about, well, okay, did we send this? What version's here? Is that 1, 2, that kind of thing? It's helping maintain that hierarchy of the project data and making sure that everything is still consistent. Now, one last thing on the communication one, because this comes up the most. When we look at things here, the biggest thing that most people tend to use is issues. But what a lot of people think of, they get caught off by the name. So issue technically is not a good or a bad thing. It's just something that you want to track. So what we're starting to see more people take advantage of this is making different kinds of issues, because these types and subtypes can all be customized, and using these in lieu of emails. So if I need to send somebody on a project an email, hey, can you send me this? Where are we with this? Rather than sending an email, then CCing 100 people or just the right people or somebody. This allows me to put that question here, assign it to the person or company or the role who's responsible, add anybody who just needs to be aware of it. So this is basically your CC, and then putting in any other data here. And if there's certain things I need to track, other parameters like priority, you can create custom attributes to add to this. I can also put in things like due date as well. So using the issues as sort of the next update from email in a way. People will still get a notification from this. I can actually control how often those notifications are sent out, whether it's instant or at the end of the day. And this makes sure that everyone's on the same page and they're all able to be held accountable. So I can go to one location, I can see all my issues. I can actually export this. I can easily filter this and say, only show me certain issues. So it makes sure that everybody is actually communicating appropriately with everybody and we're not dropping anything. Cool. So I see we got a couple of questions built up in here. Cool. So first question is about the actual project schedule that I showed. So does the project schedule sync automatically? So like if I'm working in Primavera P6 or Microsoft Project, will that automatically sync? It doesn't automatically sync out of the box. So if you're working with the API or some third-party tools, it can. But typically what most people are doing is when I make a change to my project or P6, I'll then save that and then upload that here and update the existing one. So at the moment, it is manual. Another question. Will there be a recording of this? Yes, this session has been recorded and it will be uploaded to our YouTube channel, probably within a day or two. And there's also a lot of other content there if anybody has any questions or other things they want to see too. Another good question. Is there a difference between the files, issues, reports, members in Docs versus Build? And why isn't reviews and transmittals available in Build if everything else is? So actually they are included. So let me hop back over here. So if I'm in Build, you're correct. You don't see transmittals and reviews here. I actually have to click on my module selector and go back to Docs. But if you own Build, you have access to Docs. As to why they didn't put the buttons there, that I don't know. But it's not like somebody will have access to one but not the other. So as long as you have the Build entitlement, you can actually utilize that. In terms of why Build and Docs don't combine, another good question for Autodesk. So the more and more the functionality is kind of consistent, although Build does have a lot more functionality than Docs, but Build, Takeoff, BIM Collaborate, and Collaborate Pro all sit on top of the functionality of Docs. So Docs is kind of the foundational component. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. So to go on to the next slide just real quick, anybody has questions, please drop them in there. But just want to let you know about a couple of upcoming events that we have. So next one that we have is going to be Tuesday, May 10th. That's going to be talking about BIM Collaborate Pro and how that actually works and helps out with infrastructure investments. A lot of people, BIM Collaborate Pro, the main focus for the longest time has always been on the design and construction for like the building side. So we want to make sure everybody realizes how much you can really do on the infrastructure side as well. And then after that, the next one is going to be Wednesday, May 18th. That's going to be going over what's new with the BIMRX service. So if you're not familiar with it, BIMRX is the suite of tools that we've built internal at Microdesk. And we do a lot of work on projects. We actually all come from the trade. We have our own development team. So we've been building tools that help us on our projects and helping all of our clients as well. There's a lot of functionality, a lot of efficiency that can be saved. If you have any questions about that, definitely feel free to sign up for that one. And if you do have ideas like, you know what, I really would love a webinar about this, I have questions on that. Or if you didn't put a question in here and you realize it 5 minutes later, it's like, oh, I meant to ask that. Always feel free to reach out to us. You can email us at salessupport@microdesk.com. Give us a phone call as well. We also have our YouTube channel, Facebook, and all the other jazz from us social standpoint. But otherwise, everybody, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it. If there are other questions about how you can use Autodesk Build or any other thing from a project management standpoint, let us know. We'll be glad to help out.